Welcome everyone, Legion Gaming. I'm your host Donnie, and as always, I'm joined by co-host Deuce.
Does anyone smell chili dogs?
I don't know what chili dogs. That does sound pretty delicious. We also have a special guest today for our special significant chili dog episode. I guess we have Juan, who hasn't joined us in quite a while.
Boys, it is glad to be back. I'm looking forward to this. Chili dogs, huh? Is that a reference to something?
Yeah, Sonic always eats chili dogs.
Not in the Genesis, my friend.
Yeah, that's pre-chili dogs.
In
Sonic,
every version of Sonic that can talk, he always wants chili dogs.
There you go. The one voiced by Jaleel White.
Yes.
Maybe the impetus there. I don't know.
I think that, and even in the first Sonic movie, he goes for...
Oh, see, I don't remember. I have to rewatch that.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you haven't clued in to people listening to us banter about nothing here, episode 78 is all about Sonic, but it's really just, we're going to be focusing on the early Genesis years. So it's going to be really just Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and Knuckles and also Sonic CD. So I think it'll be a fun episode because this is nearing Sonic's 35th anniversary, which is also indicative of how old we are. Mm-hmm. But it's also pretty incredible that 3.5 decades later, the blue hedgehog that has made a huge mark in gaming is still going and still going fast. One little note before we get started with everything. If you want to reach out to us, I always forget to shout these things out. But you can reach out to us by email at legiongamingpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Legion Gaming Podcast and also on Blue Sky a little bit at Legion Gaming Pod, where I kind of post, but not really. It's really more like Instagram because I like photos and videos and all that stuff versus just people talking about politics and other garbage.
Yeah, you do some good posts on Instagram to
I think people
remind
enjoy
people
those.
of the past.
Yeah. It's a little trip down nostalgia lane, more or less. Before we get started with everything Sonic, what have you guys been playing lately?
Well, I guess I'll go. And I haven't been playing a whole lot on like the major systems, PS5 or Xbox for some reason. Ever since I finished Dispatch a while back while I was sick, I found I could actually play that while I was sick because it was just like watching a TV episode. And
yeah, a little bit more interactive.
Occasionally I had to hit a button.
Yeah.
But that was a real fun time. And now I've just been stuck on my Switch playing a bunch of games I found on sale, like Legend Bowl, which is this awesome like retro art style kind of like Tecmo Bowl, but it's from the perspective of Madden, and it plays like Madden. It's very in-depth when it comes to your team in a franchise mode. It doesn't have the NFL license, but all the teams are from the cities and they're in the divisions that would be in the NFL. And weirdly, they like some of them still have the same colors, but instead of like the Miami Dolphins, they're the Miami Sharks.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Some sort of aquatic animal.
Instead of the Kansas City Chiefs, it's the Kansas City Coyotes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like the New England Rebels.
Very close. It's like the Revolutionaries or something like that.
Fantastic.
But that's been a really fun time, and it's like I said, sort of like Madden, where it's a little bit sim, but it also has the hits from Blitz, where if you get a proper hit on a guy, like blood will splatter everywhere, his helmet will pop off.
Like
he might be
League
injured.
Football or something.
Yeah,
So it's the NFL.
Yeah. The refs rarely call pass interference.
So like the NFL.
Sometimes.
But
Some
sometimes
games.
they call it too many.
Yeah.
Do they also not acknowledge CTE like the NFL?
Apparently.
Wow.
Because like I said, the helmets just fly off.
It's pretty true to life then.
The helmets fly off, and then it says, this guy has a sprained shoulder for 2 weeks. I don't think that was what happened.
You're sure it's not licensed by the NFL? 'Cause the more you describe it.
Yeah, it works out perfect. I also got into this game, Shakedown Hawaii, and it's by the people who made Retro City Rampage, which is like a top-down... It's like the original Grand Theft Auto or Grand Theft Auto 2, where you can just go anywhere in the city, you can steal any car, but this one is based on the fact that you are a mob boss from the 80s who is finding out his empire is dwindling because of modern technology. So, like, he had video rental stores, but everybody streams now, so those aren't doing
this
business.
Is great. What a premise.
What else? Oh, he I guess he had like a taxi company that was like where he laundered some money through, but everybody Ubers now, so he can't do anything there. And now you have to go around the city and start getting into more modern things where you're trying to run like a VR business underground, and you're trying to you're trying to go legit, so you call this guy overseas and he starts stealing like banana farms, and they're not drugs, It legitimately is banana farms or fruit farms just to sell fruit legitimately in the US. But yeah, it's been a real fun time. I played Retro City Rampage back in the day a little bit, but this one has definitely hooked me more because like this is what I wanted to do in the end game of Grand Theft Auto, where like I want to just be a mob boss and own properties and run like illegal things, quote unquote, legally, like and I just wanted to do that. You also go into like convenience stores and force them to pay you protection money. I'm like, this is fun. For it was only $3.
Yeah, I've been wanting to play this one because it's been out for quite a while now, and it's just one of those games that I'm sure is on PS Plus for free. Actually, I mean, look.
No, I don't think I
maybe
saw
it
there.
used to be or something. I thought it used to be, but it's just I've always seen it, and it's one of those things that I always put on my list and I just never got to it. And you told me it was $3. I was like, well, I kind of have to buy it now because it's $3. Like, how could you be upset about that? Plus, I really did enjoy Retro City Rampage at the time. I don't think I got stuck on that. I think I just got distracted some because I played it on PS4 and I eventually got the Switch version, which I thought I would finish. And I didn't. And Shakedown Hawaii is supposed to be an even better version of that, more or less.
Yeah, it's very good portable. I don't know if I would even play it on a large screen TV. I just like having something on in the background.
Yeah, this feels like a great, like it's, like you said, it's a great portable 2D game that is just, like you said, you can watch something while you're playing it.
Yeah. Pass the time. One night I was playing and I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed for work, and then I look up, I'm like, it's 12:30. Oh shit.
Well, you were working technically in some regard. Yeah,
Sign of a great game though, right?
Yeah,
Time flies.
And the last thing I played on still on Switch was Final Fantasy VI. I got into that, the Pixel remaster. A couple years ago I finished Final Fantasy 1, and now I'm doing 6 because I played it a little back in the day. I think I borrowed it from a friend of ours and didn't get too far into it. And now that I'm replaying it, I know I got to certain parts that have been memed, like the whole like power bombing a train.
Oh, suplexing a train. Yeah, with Sabin.
It's like, okay, I remember that part in the game, and then as I've been playing the opening parts, I'm like, I don't remember any of this opening story.
That's surprising because the opening is by far one of the most iconic RPG openings ever. Yeah. So it's funny that you just completely forgot about everything.
Yeah, I'm like, when do I get to the forest and suplex a train?
Yeah, because that's a little bit. I mean, it's not too far in, but yeah, it's like you kind of introduced with you're going through like the mountainous, snowy area and the mechs, and you have like your opening battles, and you get to your first town that's sort of like just directed you there, and
then the you go to this one castle, and to hide from the enemy, it just goes underground. I was like, yeah, when was that?
You can travel with that later, I'm pretty sure too, because I think it's Edgar's castle, and I think it becomes like your sort of traveling castle later on, if I remember right.
That is awesome.
It's pretty cool.
It's like Stargate Atlantis.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's I say that I need to finish it, but I got stuck on the Game Boy Advance version way back. I got to the end part of the game and I realized that I was underleveled with most of the characters because it was one of those RPGs where you have to form multiple parties to get to the end game, to get to Kefka essentially. And I totally screwed myself because I obviously focused on the characters I really like and that were useful, and the characters that weren't so useful were underleveled. And at that point I was like, shit, like I don't know if I want to go grind through all of this. Like I'm near the end. I don't know if I can get out of here to go grind,
Come on, plucky heroes.
Yeah, so it was really hard, but I know the remaster has a lot of quality of life changes, like has the XP boosts and the like the gil and all that stuff. So at least if you'll get to that point, like you won't feel like you'll hit a wall. You can just kind of turn that on and level up as you need and get through, which I think is always a great thing when old games add those things, because some old games don't age terribly well, and it can be really hard for people who've never played them before, especially now, to get into them. But like, yeah, this is clearly archaic and from 1993. So it's nice when they add those little options that actually make you want to get through the game and actually help you progress through the game.
Yeah, without these pixel remasters, I don't think I would have ever beaten the very first game.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, that one you probably would have to really read up on and figure out everything beforehand versus, back then it was all trial and error. And I think that's less approachable now than it would be back then, when that's like the only game you might have when you're a kid.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Juan, what have you been playing?
So, funny story. A few months back, I got on my YouTube algorithm a kind of let's play, I guess, for Command and Conquer Generals. And I thought it was weird because I'd never looked it up, but that was one of my favorite games of the early 2000s. So, of course, I clicked on it. And you all know how this goes. One video led to another video, led to another video.
That itch.
Yep. Next thing you know, I'm trying to figure out a way to get the game. It's like basically $20 for all versions, all the remasters. So now I've been playing the different, and Command and Conquer Generals is the one I liked in the early 2000s, but I played all the Command and Conquers. So now I'm back to playing through all of them. And first of all, great games, just fantastic RTS games. If you have not played them, if they're a little before your time, I would highly recommend them all. But the second thing I thought as I was playing through, I want to say Yuri's Revenge. Don't worry about the title. I was thinking, so 30 years ago, they were talking about what if the Nazis were in America? what if there were America got taken over by like foreign powers? That could never happen.
It's a fantasy.
It's like playing Wolfenstein now.
Yeah. There's a new Wolfenstein coming out, by the way.
Oh, really?
No.
Perfectly timely. Yeah.
But I will say it also told me something else. So I've played League of Legends. I've played some of the. They don't make RTSs like they used to.
That's true.
There's a few that are out now that are sort of spiritual successors to those, but yeah, RTSs are not what they used to be because the gaming landscape has changed so much.
Well, don't they still have like major competitions with StarCraft and stuff like all the old stuff?
StarCraft 2 is like free to play now, so it's less of an issue. I think it's more just people have shifted towards like Dota
MOBAs?
and those MOBA type games, right? So it's the real-time strategy. There's a few that come out on PC that I've heard are really good. I forgot what's called, but there's there's a tournament one called Defiance that's supposed to be pretty good. There's one that's actually like I don't know if it's from the Command and Conquer team. I have to find this. I'll find the name and send it to you, Juan. But it's just really the end game of it is it's just like RTSs are not nearly released as frequently as they used to be. Like I feel like that Command and Conquer era was like prime RTS time for PC.
Yeah, but in any case, kids, if you don't know the words Command and Conquer, highly recommend. You will not regret it.
Yeah, I remember that was a big title for me, and I don't think I ever played any of them. But I just knew how good they were. Like they were the pioneers in their thing, along with Age of Empires.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Age of Empires, yeah.
Yeah, that was another big one. I think they have part 4 or something coming out soon. I don't remember. RTSs, I wish I was better at them.
Yeah.
Our friend Rainey plays them a lot, and he's really good at them. I'm the opposite where I just have to commit myself to get over the learning curve. I wish I enjoyed them more because they're really freaking cool. Like I love the idea of them. They're a good time. It's just I hit a wall eventually at some point.
There was a Star Trek version, I think it was called New Worlds, that I was pretty good at and my mom got hooked on. The problem was you don't hit a wall, you have a glitch that wipes out an entire race.
Oh, geez.
And you're like, I can't finish this mission because there's nobody to fight.
That sounds like a game from back in the day. They're like, oh, here's a random glitch. I think Civilization 2 had a random glitch like that with, I don't know if it was actually true though, where they said like Gandhi's, I guess there was some issue with his peace factor or peace rating where it would overflow, like it would go to 256 or something like that, and like he would actually just incinerate the world or something like that. I don't know if it's actually true. That's just what I've heard, but it sounds like a glitch that would have happened.
Gandhi is fed up.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, no more passive aggressive.
Gandhi, more like gone don't.
Gone done. Yeah. For what I've been playing, I've been kind of like you, where I've been sort of like just hobbling around my next bigger game to tackle. I don't know. I just been kind of like in a weird lull of sorts. I just been playing like these smaller games. So one of the ones that I got into was Metal Eden. It's this first-person shooter that I got late last year. I would say it's an indie game because it's not like a AAA game. It's a AA game, but it's clearly inspired by like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, where it's just this really fast and frenetic kind of combat. It's also like hyper futuristic. The whole idea of the story is like it's something with like how in the future humanity's sort of the Earth's become uninhabitable, so now there's sort of a consciousness are in these cores, and this rogue AI has taken these cores, basically just these people's consciousness, and you're out to sort of break out these 4 engineers who sort of set up this system. I guess they're sort of consciousness as well, so you could tackle down the rogue AI and kill it. It was a really great game. It's like, you know, a solid 8 out of 10, even though I had a little bit of performance issues and whatnot. It's really good. It's just not a game I would recommend at full price at like $40 because it's pretty short. It only took me, I don't know, it was like 7 or 8 hours at most, and there's not a whole lot after that. But it actually was great at that length. Like it didn't overstay its welcome because it does encourage like the Doom quick swapping with weapons. Like, you know, you have enemies who are armored, so you have to use a certain weapon against that. Use another type of weapon for another type of enemy that's approaching you. So it just forces you to quickly think and adapt to the combat that's there. And I love that kind of stuff. Like, you know me, Deuce, I'm always not showing up about Doom and fast shooters. And this was right up my alley. So that was a nice little bite-sized adventure that I got through in a weekend. I got a little bit more into Borderlands 4, and I'm at the point where I don't know if I'm sick of this game or not, or bored of it. I played a mission, a side quest, or at least what I thought was a side quest mission, where it turns out it was some DLC bit that they added at some point. And I was like, wow, this mission's really long. It's like an hour and a half or something. I was getting kind of bored because it forces you to go to these antennas, destroy these sort of hot points in the antennas, destroy the battery, go to a skirmish, and do the thing like 3 times. And I could deal with all that, like just the monotonous of these kind of action RPGs,
Typical
right?
Borderlands
Yeah, it's just
stuff.
like Diablo, Borderlands stuff. But the thing that really busted my balls was when I got to the boss of this area, and the levels are kind of scaled to your level. So this boss was like 1 level ahead of me, but it was definitely a damage sponge. And there's 2 bosses. There's like this big old mech dog looking thing that I tackled first because it was just obviously a lot more aggressive towards me. And there's a flying guy who's like the main boss of the area. So I kill this mech boss after being a damage sponge for like, it felt like 7 or 8 minutes straight of just shooting, also with little minions. So I kill that, and I'm looking for the boss. I'm like, well, I see his life bar. I don't see him anywhere. So my character has these abilities where she gets set off like a melee-based sort of spectral minion, or like a long-range one. So I set both out, thinking that the auto aim at the boss kind of like help me track it.
Or
And
maybe get his attention or something.
yeah, just kind of, just try to get his attention so he could attack me so I could, kill him. Because I know he's going to take a lot of bullets because he had mostly full health. So I'm looking around for like, I swear it must be like 2 or 3 minutes. And then like, I looked on Google, it's like, I'm going to be real pissed if I found out this is a glitch. So I looked online, and sure enough, this can happen where this specific boss fight where it's just whatever glitch occurs, I don't know how it's caused, but that boss can just disappear.
No.
So at this point, like, I don't get mad often at all. Like, I'm just not that kind of mad person. This is like, all right, this is complete bullshit. Like, I'm not gonna, restart the checkpoint and do that damage sponge boss fight all over again with the potential of that glitch occurring again. So that's the last time I picked it up. It was like early this week. I was like, I'm done with this shit. I just turned it off and played something else.
For the first time, the boss is acting logically. He's like, wait, I don't have to fight. I'll just fly off out of here.
Which I would have loved if actually gave me credit for beating him and completing the mission. But now I have to like see if I could get out of this mission, because I'm not going to finish this. Like, I'm already so irritated with it. I'm not going to try to deal with this boss after I know how much of a pain in the ass it is, right? So I'm going to continue with the main story and maybe get through it. But it's a fine game. I definitely think it probably would help if it was more like if I had co-op friends, because it is really monotonous. Like, you're just shooting stuff like always, but there's more enemies in this one because it's bigger. Like, the open world is way more massive. So I feel like I'm missing something without having like co-op partners, right? Because I was enjoying it, but when I have like glitches like this, it just kills my enjoyment. Like, I'll deal with a lot of glitches, but that shit where it's like a damage sponge and he disappears and I have to do that whole boss fight 10 minutes over again, I'm done.
Can you maybe they want you to like fight the flying one first while dodging the mech?
The mech thing is huge and very aggressive and has dash attack. So I dispatched that first because he was by far the worst of the 2.
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, cool, I beat him, and I'm looking around like, oh god, do not tell me this is a glitch or something. And yeah, once I found out I was not happy.
The flying boss got bored watching you fight the mech.
Yeah. So I just went to like Capcom versus SNK 2 or something, just played that online because it's like, at least I know that there's less BS than that. Yeah.
If somebody disappears on there, it's rage quitting.
Exactly, which happened. Yeah, that's bound to happen at least once a night for me. Yeah. And the last game that I got into, kind of just totally separate from this, was I just had an itch to play it. Was Ghostbusters Remastered. I hadn't played this in almost 2 years because I looked at my last trophy and I picked up 4/19/24, which I remember because that's the day before Vito and I recorded our episode way back, which blows my mind. It was almost 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. But yeah, holy crap. Every time I pick this game up again, I realized how much I loved it, even back then and now. The remaster isn't anything special. Like, it just looks better, but it didn't really improve any of the controls. So it still has a little bit of clunkiness and everything like that. But it doesn't even matter because the game is just so fun, so hilarious, and so enjoyable that I was actually having a really good time last night playing it, where I got through like another 3 or 4 levels. And it's really great. The only thing that sucks is that they never added back online co-op to this remaster.
Oh.
Yeah, I know it's a small-time developer who did it, but I remember that they had sort of promised that they would eventually patch it in, and that was 6 years ago. So I don't think this is ever going to happen, unfortunately.
Did it have couch co-op?
It did back then. Oh, no, this one does. I believe this one does have couch co-op at least. Actually, I should check because I don't remember. Maybe they took that out too. It could have been just they removed all multiplayer for all I know. I don't remember. I just know that when it came out, I got it and I loved it. But I was like, wow, that's kind of BS that there's no online component. Like, it wasn't anything substantial, but it's those little side missions that kind of I think they folded in the main story or something like that. But it's 6-7 years later and they haven't done anything with it.
Probably not even around still.
I should look him up. Maybe not. You might be right, unfortunately. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I think now it's time to celebrate 35 years of Sonic. All right, fellas, we're here. We're going to be doing a little bit of a retrospective of Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic CD, and Sonic and Knuckles, which also is technically called Sonic 3 and Knuckles, as we'll talk about soon enough. But I think before we get into everything Sonic, we need to talk about the Genesis pre-Sonic, because, you know, when I was a kid, as far as I knew, Sonic existed with the Genesis. Like, that's when it came out, was I got a Genesis that had Sonic. The Genesis was a new system. It wasn't until I got much older and I realized, oh, wow, this actually predates the Super Nintendo by at least 2 years, which is pretty incredible. This was just before 1990, so the Genesis could be argued as not technically a 90s console. It was released right after. Did you guys have any sort of familiarity with the Genesis before Sonic? I'm assuming we're all kind of in the same boat here, where Sonic might have been the first thing we saw.
I think for American audiences, it definitely was, to your point, a hand-in-hand. It was a Mario and Nintendo situation where, for us, that was just Sonic and Genesis basically were interchangeable almost when you were talking about it with your friends in the playground when it first came out. What do you think, Ducey?
Oh, yeah. I, like Don, thought that the Genesis came out with the Super Nintendo to fight it, and then Sonic was going to be versus Mario. Like, when I heard about it in 89, and I thought back, like, 89 was probably when I got my Nintendo, even though it had been out for 4 years at that point.
Probably about the same time for me, 89, 90.
But I was just old enough that my parents were like, yeah, it's time, you can have this. And then to think at the same time that a 16-bit console already existed, I was like, no, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, totally on my periphery for the same reason. The only memory I have of the Genesis pre-Sonic was my half-uncle had it, and like he brought it over. He just brought it over my house, like the whole box, and on the cover, on the front of the box was what I would later learn to be Altered Beast, which is another badass Genesis game I really like. But unfortunately, he forgot the controller, so we never get to play it. So I was like, I literally got to see the Genesis before anything else. That's my only memory of pre-Sonic Genesis, was seeing the box. I'm like, oh, well, we can't play this, can we?
Well, and the other thing, too, I would say, at least for me as a kid, the look of it, the look of the Genesis versus the look of the Super Nintendo. Even though, you know, especially once I got older, I understood that it came out before. When I was a kid, that black, rounded look looked like the future versus the Super Nintendo that was still blocky, gray and, what was it, gray and
purple.
Purple-ish? Yeah, light purple. So just the black, sleek Genesis look. I genuinely thought it was the new thing to fight the Super Nintendo.
I was a little bit of the opposite because I was such a Nintendo kid and like I loved the Nintendo and the Game Boy. I saw the Super Nintendo was a light color, meaning good guys. And the Sega was a black color.
Like awesome villain.
Yeah, it was like awesome. Darth Vader, because it had the little red light like right there in the middle and everything. I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to stick with Nintendo.
Well, I mean, Luke's the cool guy. Or sorry, Luke's the good guy, but who's the cool guy?
Yeah, right?
I'm with you on where the Genesis 1 especially is one of my favorite, most gorgeous design consoles, because to me it just looks so iconic. Like you said, it's black, it's sleek, it's got that cool red light in the middle, like you said, Deucey. It says 16-bit right on the damn thing, right? As a headphone jack. I'd say the only thing I hate about the OG Genesis is the stupidly short controller cables.
Oh, yeah.
They're really like 3 feet long. Like they expect you to be staring into the screen at the same time.
And one last note for you youngins out there, they're right now looking at an old Genesis and going, what are they talking about? Sleek and cool looking. You have to remember that, yes, compared to what's available now, it may not look as sleek. But back then, we were still dealing, in some cases, with computers the size of like 5 of your current computers.
And just really blocky electronics, right? Like you said, they're very square, very,
well,
they're not designed to be sort of elegant or anything like that. They were designed to be functional.
Yeah, Nintendo wanted to disguise the fact that it was like a kid's thing. They were like, we're going to make this look like a VCR.
Yeah, so much so that you have to slot the cartridge in like a VCR and push it down. Yeah. So the Genesis did launch in the 80s. It's just towards the end of the 80s, but in the US it launched around August or September 1989. It came out even earlier in Japan, which is even more shocking. It was October 1988. So it's even closer to the Nintendo relative to us, which is pretty incredible that we were on the Nintendo boats, 8 bits, and Genesis was already out. I believe the TurboGrafx was already out as well. That was, or at least it was about to come out in Japan. It was called the PC Engine. I had a friend who had a TurboGrafx. I played Bonk on there, and that was like the only game I wanted.
That's the only game I knew was
yeah,
out on
right?
that.
Yeah. So it's like I never saw it for sale anywhere. I was even shocked that he had it because I was like, what the hell is a TurboGrafx? Like I'd seen magazines, right? But that was the only thing. But the Genesis to me was like sort of the 16-bit signal that like this is sort of the new system coming up.
It's weird, like you have this note here that it came out around the same time as Mario 3 in Japan.
Yeah.
And to think like the Genesis came out probably with Altered Beast right away, and everybody praised the graphics of that and the colors and everything. Whereas Mario 3, they were like, okay, we've only got 8 bits, but we're gonna do the shit out of this.
Oh
like,
yeah, I think that's the thing is like the Altered Beast. Like a lot of people are critical of Altered Beast now because they say it's like such a goofy bad port. But again, relative to back then, it didn't matter. Like you had the arcade game at home. That's all that really mattered. It didn't matter how it looked, which to me looked pretty amazing back then. And maybe it doesn't play as well as the arcade, but you still weren't paying 50 cents each time you were playing that, right? You had that at home now. So up until this time, Nintendo had a very firm grip on the console market. It was said that the Famicom outsold the Sega's first system, which is the SG-1000. I think they came out like in 82, 83. I can't fully recall. But it was outselling it by 10-1, which is...
When did the Master System come out?
It was
Somewhere
like
in
86 or 87,
Oh,
I think, because that was called the Sega something Mark III in Japan, and they got converted to the Master System in the US.
And that was like their Nintendo, technically.
It was their
But it was very short-lived.
It was very short-lived, at least in the US, because I didn't even know that existed till like, I was practically a teenager. No one I knew had a Master System. No one I knew mentioned a Master System.
Yeah.
But it's also incredible too because Sega still acknowledged the Master System because the Genesis eventually got the power base converter, which was a way to play Master System games on your Genesis. It was just like this plastic thing that went over it.
Oh wow.
It was really cool. But again, like I know about that till way later, but it also shows you how forward-thinking Sega was by having backwards compatibility with their older system. I don't know how many people got it because I imagine not many people bought a Master System in the US, but it existed. That's really the coolest thing about it.
And Nintendo never even thought about that. But
no, but Nintendo's like, just buy the new system
Yeah.
or just stick to the old one. We don't care. Yeah. So the Sega was positioned as the more mature system compared to the NES and the TurboGrafx, which go hand in hand goes with what you're saying, Juan, where it looked like it was more designed to be like that kind of a system. It only sold about 500,000 in the first year. They were shooting for 1 million. And like you mentioned, Ducey, Mario Bros. 3 came out in the US in February 90. And it's obviously believed that took a lot of sales from the Genesis, understandably, because there was way more people with Nintendos, and Super Mario 3 was like the most hyped game of the early or sort of the late 80s.
it had its own
90s.
movie commercial.
Yeah, it had its own movie commercial. It was like the first time we got to see it was in The Wizard. So it was a massive, massive game. And, when you have a brand new system from Sega, and maybe they're not so proven here because, again, the Master System probably didn't sell well. They're clearly being outsold by Nintendo. It's a little bit hard to gain some traction when you're trying to make 1 million sales in the first year for the console. Many of the early Genesis games were ports of arcade games, like we talked about, like Altered Beast. And then also one thing, I even noticed this too when I was renting them back as a kid, but there's always some sort of celebrity or like athletes on the covers of these games. Like that was their big thing. Sega was positioning like this is sort of the teenager adult system. It's like we got Tommy Lasorda baseball, which I always know is like the Bill Clinton baseball game. There was like the Evander Holyfield boxing game. There's Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, Joe Montana football. There was always some celebrity. I never saw that on Nintendo back then. Like it just wasn't. It was less frequent, I would say.
Yeah, I can only think of 2, and that's because I'm a race fan. But other than that, like, yeah, not so much. Oh, nope, that was on Sega also. There was like a Deion Sanders primetime football on Sega.
Yeah,
Oh, fantastic.
I remember that one. Yeah,
I remember the Joe Montana game.
Yeah.
yeah. So Sega, wanting to obviously make a mark in the console markets, the president of Sega, Hayao Nakayama, he hired someone called, or not someone, I shouldn't say him, it's like someone, but he hired Tom Kalinske, who I think was working at Mattel previous to this, but he was going to be heading Sega of America in 1990, and Tom Kalinske designed this sort of 4-point plan that would cut the price of the Genesis. He wanted to create a American developer to create American games that are more targeted towards the American market. And also he wanted to expand their aggressive advertising, which, now it's iconic now. Like the whole slogan back then was Genesis does what Nintendo don't, which very blatant competition. Like now Sony won't acknowledge Xbox necessarily. Not that there's much competition now, but it wasn't so much mudslinging back and forth. Like they weren't acknowledging each different companies back then.
I think even as soon as like the N64 and PlayStation days, well, no, I take that back. Crash Bandicoot came out and was like making fun of Mario. So maybe like the PS2 GameCube era is when they finally just stopped doing mudslinging campaigns.
That's what it felt like then, because then it kind of, I think that was when they were consoles were starting to establish themselves as like sort of a, what I always say, like they're sort of the different flavor for different people, right? Where it's like, if you want an Xbox with like online play and the hard drive and all that stuff, you can get that. If you love Nintendo stuff, get a GameCube. And now it's like, if you want Game Pass and like, cloud game, you get an Xbox or something. If you want, PlayStation franchises and everything else, it's on PS5. If you want Nintendo, this is Switch. So they're all sort of disparate from each other, where back then it really feels like it was more about who could get the most market share, which is really what the challenge was, is that Nintendo was so far ahead of everyone else that no one could catch them until Sega did it with Sonic.
I think also like people with the internet go to what they know, and you don't have people watching commercials. Like you buy YouTube and try to get the premium so you don't have to watch ads, and you on TV you might record things and then just fast forward, so you can't do these commercials like we used to have back on Comedy Central or Cartoon Network or anything,
because now they're literally targeting you. Like they'll see what interests you have, and like, well, we can't reach you through TV because you're not watching it, you're cord cutting, so we have to find some way to target you based on your interest. So that's a big dynamic there too that's changed, where it's like, we'd watch TV, like I always watched wrestling when I was a kid. So it's like I always see a ton of gaming commercials on there. Mm-hmm. Not really the case anymore. Now you see like a billion different ads, and everything's a little bit more specific to who you are and what your interests are.
Well, you're probably about to get into the development of Sonic a little bit more, but just real quick to put a pin and a segue into the development of Sonic. So when you are down, for example, 10-1 or worse in any industry, you do things that you wouldn't normally do. So one of the reasons that right now companies tend to not reference each other in advertising is because, to your guys' point, they don't want the consumer to think about the other company, right? If you're down 10-1, you have nothing to lose.
You swing for the fences.
You are already down 10-1. What's the worst thing that could happen? Oh, the consumer's going to think about Nintendo? They were already thinking about Nintendo.
They already have a Nintendo.
That's exactly right. So Sega had nothing to lose. In some ways, there is an argument that gaming historians have made that if Sega wasn't so behind the curve, they may not have taken some of the chances that they did in developing Sonic. And I'll kind of let you take it from here.
No, I think that's a very fair point, because you're right. When at this point, like they're so hell-bent on trying to get market share, they're like do whatever you want. And that's why they hired Tom Kalinske, because he set up that plan. And also, like, the last point of his plan was to replace Altered Beast with Sonic. And that was the ultimate differentiator, right? Which we'll get into it in a minute here. But
had Sega been doing good or great, there was no.
Oh, yeah.
Why would we change what's working?
Because Nintendo didn't really fire back on Sega. They were
didn't
like,
need to.
Yeah, you guys are so beneath us right now.
Yeah.
But I think also our mentality as a whole has changed, where like if we see somebody attacking somebody else in an ad, we want to help the ones that are being attacked. We are like, why are you being a bully? Why are you doing that? Whereas back when we were little and Sega did something against Nintendo, we're like, that's funny.
That's edgy.
It's sort of the change the perception of things. And that's what they were doing, right? When they're saying you can do all these things on the Genesis, but your NES, your piddly NES can't. It's the old outdated system from 1985. We've got Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, Altered Beast, Ghouls and Ghosts, right? And it's like, as a kid, like you might see that as compelling, because I certainly did at some point, but it wasn't until Sonic. And we'll get into development here in just a minute, but it's like just to sort of frame the impact Sonic had. The Super Nintendo had come out in, it was around 1991. I think it was like September 1991. It launched around $200. And then by this time, Sonic had come out in June of 91. And the Genesis at this time was probably around $150, $180 brand new. And it had Sonic as the packing game. So that holiday season, it actually outsold the SNES because it had a better price point. It also had 2 years of games, which the SNES did not. Like,
I noticed something too, where like, because the Master System wasn't that great and didn't sell, like SNES had this problem in the news. headline news about parents going, why are we buying this new system when we already have the Nintendo? Why can't my kid play these new
what's
games?
super about this?
But then when Genesis came along, they were just like, hey, we're Sega. We're not even Nintendo. You want to get our system?
Yeah, and look how bright and new it is. Look how fast everything moves, right? So all those pieces came together, and that's what changed the tide of the market share, because Sonic and Sega then outsold Super Nintendo like 3 or 4 holidays in a row, starting with 1991, which again never happened before that. And when it was all said and done, by early 92, Sega had 65% of the console market, which is the first time since 1985 that anyone had done that. So that shows you how big of a seismic shift Sonic was when you're outselling the Master System 10-1 in Japan, and then you now have the Genesis, which by all intents and purposes now is an old system, at least 3 years old as far as Japan, and you have it outselling the Genesis, or excuse me, the Super Nintendo 2-1, and you're having it kill everything for the next 3 or 4 years in the holiday season. So that's sort of the table setting for Sonic and how big of a deal it is.
By the way, in 1991, $200 was the equivalent of $17,000 in 2026. I think I got my inflation number right.
Adjusted for inflation.
Well, I think you're factoring the new RAM prices because of AI, so you might not be far off one. I think you're on that.
It was a down payment on a car or a house or something.
No, down payment on a house, that's a fantasy one. You're crazy.
God, but then at the same time, you said the TurboGrafx was already out. Wasn't that like ridiculous, like $400 or $500?
I don't remember. I don't think it was that expensive, but again, it's one of those things where
in 1990 money, like
it's pretty. It might have been expensive, but also like it didn't have that big a library of games. If anything, it probably did better in Japan, which is also where it succeeded more than anything. Mm. But I think in the US, it was just Nintendo, right? So it's like if Sega was small, that much smaller than Nintendo, I have to imagine TurboGrafx was even smaller than Sega, right? So there's even less people talking about, like I said, that one kid I knew down the street. I was like, wow, you have this? Like, no one I knew had a TurboGrafx. Like, I even know, like I said, I even know where you buy these things back then, you know? So I feel like that it was sort of that tier list, at least in the early 16-bit stuff, that it was like the Super Nintendo and Genesis, and then you kind of tangentially had the TurboGrafx that was just there for people who really want those niche games. Like, they really wanted Bonk or Keith Courage, I think was like the other hacking game or something like that, right? So it was interesting because it's just, that existed, but it did not exist in my childhood mind at all.
Nope.
So Sonic, this released June 23rd, 1991. Development of this started in 1990 when Sega ordered developers to create a game with a new mascot for the company. They wanted something as iconic as Mickey Mouse, which I'm sure was influenced by Mario, because at this point Mario was the mascot for Nintendo. And I think this is really the first time that a console has had like a sort of a mascot, because I don't even think the Atari, you could say it was like Pac-Man, but no one wanted to play that port, right? There was no sort of focal points on the Atari. This is probably the first instance that really...
The Pong dot.
Yeah, the Pong dot, the Pong paddle or
Frogger.
Something. Yeah, exactly. But I feel like this is definitely the era when they had that sort of that sort of masthead on brands, right? And in this case, it was Mario for Nintendo. So Sega, perhaps hoping to repeat the success of Nintendo, wanted a mascot game for the Genesis.
You know what's weird to think about? Like you said, they finally took over the sales and the marketing and stuff, but I'm sure we all had a relative or two that called everything Nintendo, even when it wasn't Nintendo.
Sure. That was the thing. Sure. Like, you get that on Nintendo? Is that your Nintendo?
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm playing Sonic. Oh, Sonic on Nintendo? Yeah.
Well, it's the same. It's the same with other things, right? Kleenex.
Yeah.
We call all facial tissue Kleenex, regardless of what it is, right? Q-tips. People don't know that's a brand.
Oh wow,
that's not the name of the cotton swabs.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I forgot all about that.
Exactly. but again, that shows you like the ubiquity of the name, right? Of Nintendo. Like it didn't matter what console it was. If, granted, like you have a Game Gear and someone could still call it a Nintendo.
Yeah.
Because it's just, they know that video games are associated with Nintendo. So therefore everything's a Nintendo, because someone who's just sort of looking at a glance is going to look and say, oh, that's a Sega Game Gear.
That's got a sting though. You're like, oh, we finally took over the market in the sales and we're leading. Yeah, Nintendo. Oh, shut up.
Yeah. And so the kid's like, no, Grandma.
Yeah.
It's a Sega Game Gear, you idiot. Or something like that. I don't know. So a blue hedgehog was designed by Naoto Oshima. It was chosen during an internal design contest. I should look it up. I didn't really find it, but I'm curious to see if some of the other designs that didn't win are online somewhere. Like someone, got those. Like, here's what some of the mascot ideas we had beforehand.
Maybe they turned into like other Sonic characters.
Maybe that's also possible.
Like in Knuckles Chaotix, all those other side guys.
Yeah. So Oshima was an artist and designer. He also designed Dr. Robotnik / Eggman, which back then was Dr. Robotnik, and I feel like he changed to Dr. Eggman probably on Sonic Adventure, as far as I recall.
Well, he was originally Eggman in
Japan. Yeah. But in the US, it's kind of like that Toadstool Princess Peach thing for us, I guess.
Or Bowser King
Bowser
Koopa.
Yeah. And he also worked on games like the Phantasy Star series, Space Harrier, Tommy the Sword of Baseball. I just like mentioning Tommy the Sword all the time because it's the Bill Clinton game. and basically just a ton of Sonic games. He's really integral to Sonic as far as like the look and feel of Sonic. This game actually started as a game called Twin Stars, where these twin brothers enter a dream world, and they go against this they call it like a nightmare boss, but he's part of the nightmare world, which reminds me of the Sega Saturn game Knights a little bit, right? It's sort of like the Knights going in the dream world, and
Nemo Dream Master.
Yeah, Little Nemo, something like that. Yeah, so it started as that kind of game where it had no sort of mascot attached. It's just these sort of this narrative of these two brothers, and then I guess they thought that would be a good proxy for Sonic, because this game also featured like the sort of like the fast-paced loop-de-loops and, you know, corkscrew movements and whatnot. It was a little fast-paced, so they figured that Sonic, with his hedgehog and his speed, that they could do something like that. Sega executives liked the idea, but not the characters of Twin Stars, so that's also why they had to redesign this game for that, and that's kind of where Sonic fell into place. Sonic was originally teal, and he's sort of a combination of Felix the Cat's head and Mickey Mouse's body, which I didn't really connect, but once I read that, I was like, I can kind of see it. Like Felix's
totally
big head,
sense.
right? Like the big eyes and the slim Mickey Mouse body. It was pretty cool. The belts on his shoes were inspired by Michael Jackson's album cover for Bad, which I could totally see, and it's just absolutely late 80s, early 90s. He's the king of pop for a reason.
You don't even see those in the game though. Like, it's only in the box art covers. Like,
yeah, like once you notice them, you notice them.
Yeah,
but it's like I don't think I would have made the connection to Michael Jackson, even though it makes perfect freaking sense for the time. Yeah. Yuji Naka, he's going to be a name that's prevalent all over the Sonic games. He was the co-creator and he's a programmer. He was a lead programmer on the Sonic games and worked at Sega until 2006. He's gotten into some legal trouble lately for some insider trading. And his last failure of a game called Balan Underworld. I don't know if you remember that game.
Guy.
Yeah. He got in trouble in Japan, and I guess in Japan they actually prosecute people for insider trading instead of just, let them become president or something crazy.
Yeah, right.
It's a little weird. And then Sonic's name was originally going to be Mr. Hedgehog, which thank God they didn't go with that name.
No, that would have been awesome. Mr. Hedgehog versus Dr. Robotnik.
Mr. Hedgehog. Oh man. Yeah.
No, call me Sonic. Mr. Hedgehog's my dad.
Yeah. Exactly.
Then Robotnik could have come out like Agent Smith. He would have been like Mr. Hedgehog.
Yeah. Exactly. A little pre-1999, but I think it could have worked. But then they shifted to Sonic because obviously that name connotes sort of like, it's speed, right? Like that's the thrill of speed, and it worked. And also that's their development name, and that's sort of the company's been named that ever since. They're called Sonic Team, and they're one of the more prolific Sonic and Sega developers. Like you see their logo and everything, like you recognize Sonic Team. And the last note here is that the music, which is really iconic across all these games. I just wanted to shout this person out because he created it. It's Masato Nakamura. He was a bassist for the J-pop band Dreams Come True, which I have no familiarity with, but I feel like the music was so good in this game that we at least have to acknowledge.
Well, if all their music sounds like Sonic music, I'll give them a listen.
I should check them out. I'd be curious. Like it might sound kind of boppy like Sonic. Yeah. All right, guys, so let's get into the game here. Let's maybe you guys want to talk about like your first impressions way back then, how you kind of came about it, and just sort of I don't know, anything you want to say about the first Sonic game and what a big deal it was.
I don't know when I first played the first one, because on my Game Gear, or my dad's Game Gear, when he got it, it got packed in with Sonic 2, and all my friends seemed to have Sonic 2 right away. So I was trying my hardest to try and remember when I first played Sonic 1.
You had to play it in my house because I know I got the Sega Genesis with the Sonic pack-in. It had to be like early 92.
Sonic 1 pack-in?
Sonic 1, yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was there, and that could be true because I don't remember playing 2-player with you.
Well, it wasn't 2-player in the first game, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't, and if we did want to, we would just play Sonic 2. But I did play Sonic 1 a ton when collections started coming out because I always wanted to play the games in order, and then I wouldn't really finish Sonic 1. So
it was kind of hard. Yeah.
Yeah, you would get stuck at like what's the water one in that one?
Labyrinth Zone?
Yes. I would always just sort of dwindle there, like because I got tired of hearing the the Sonic drowning music.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say, like, how great the sound is in this game. I think that's still one of the most anxiety-inducing sounds I can hear in any game is when you're underwater Sonic.
Oh, for sure.
And he's running out of air. And the music gets more and more intense as he's running out, and you're just like,
trigger
about to
warning,
drown.
people.
Yeah, it is terrifying. It still is to me, where it's just, the anxiety builds because you're trying to find a way out, trying to find a pocket of air bubble.
Yeah.
You don't want to see Sonic die. Like, he dies in a pretty brutal way.
Well, and it's doubly worse because I remember at the time, if you landed on a spike or in the lava with Mario, it was just a sprite that kind of went off screen. Bloop. Yeah, but with Sonic actually kind of did like a little facial expression.
Yeah.
And you were like, no!
And he faced the screen.
And his little mouth was trying to gasp for air.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Yeah, that was not great.
Yeah, I would say it's a little heavy for someone my age. I guess I was probably like 7 years old at the time, and it was just really sad to see.
Yeah.
But also just it sucked because those water levels in any game were always difficult. Like I go back to the Turtles game where that was just like a nightmare.
Oh god,
and this wasn't on that level, but it's just when you hear that music just intensify and get louder and faster, you're like, crap, I'm about to kill Sonic. I can't do anything about it.
And then, like, to be extra safe, I would stay by the little bubble generator, and I'd be like, I'd take 2 or 3 bubbles before I started to move.
Yeah, you kind of like plan ahead. It's like, well, I know what's ahead, so I'm just going to wait till refill on air. I don't know what else is beyond that.
So I also played Sonic 1 after Sonic 2, and I remember my number one thing was like, why is it not fast anymore?
Yes.
Like, I don't know if my little brain just couldn't put 2 and 2 together that Sonic 2 was developed after Sonic 1, so it was going to have more features. But just in my head, it just seemed like they should be like the same, because in my little kid head, it's the same guy. It's Sonic.
Yeah.
Why did he slow down? This doesn't make sense. I mean, it was still a fun game, though.
It's really good. It's definitely, it doesn't age as well as like 2, and I think really the biggest thing is that when we get to 2, we'll talk about like how it has a spin dash, which negates so much of the issues of Sonic 1, where back then I vividly recall where it's like you might have to get up like a ramp or something. Don't have enough speed, so you're almost like going backwards in level to pick up speed and momentum.
God, I played some Sonic 1, the original version, and it wasn't even just the ramps with the curves. It was like going up a hill was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, like you could hold right and he just would not go up.
Just sort of walking.
It's like you can't even really, it's rude because you can't even really hop either because like he doesn't have momentum to move forward.
No, he'll start hopping diagonally backwards.
Yeah.
And you just ruined all your progress.
Yeah, it was a challenging game. I do remember beating it. I'm pretty sure I did with cheats back then because the last boss is, I think it's called like Death Egg or something like that. Yeah. But there's like these pistons with Robotnik. He's in this big old robot suit. It's really hard. I remember seeing my buddy Alex beat it because he was 4 years older than me, so he was better at games just naturally. So we would get there and like, all right, you got to try this because you have to like, the pistons would come up. You have to hit them in there, go back and forth, avoid getting stomped by pistons. And I think there's like a second phase too. I can't fully recall. But again, once you beat it, it felt really satisfying because it was so difficult. I think this game, Sonic in general kind of gets like this weird distilled bad rap where they say like you're just holding rights and you're going 100 miles an hour. I'm like, well,
no,
maybe in some instances, but I feel like there's a lot of instances where there's platforming in this game and it's not so easy. Like even like in Marble Zone, I think the difficulty ramps up a little bit in there pretty well.
In all of the Sonic games we're going to talk about today, like the first world is set up for the Sonic speed. You've got the loops. You just go as fast as you can. They even give achievements on Xbox for like beating it in under a minute and something. And then as soon as you hit the second world, no matter which game you're in, platforming. And there goes all of your speed and your ramps. And there's the occasional loop-de-loop still, but it's like in Chemical Plant, that's a later game, like you could easily just fall for no reason. You're like, I was trying to go fast. Yeah. Here's a gap you didn't see coming.
And also one big thing about this game too, just in general, going back to what you said about Speed 1, is that there really wasn't anything on Nintendo that came close to this as well.
That's right.
Because you also have to figure, like, let's see, even at the earliest, this game came out in June 91. Super Nintendo wouldn't be out for a couple months. And even then, the fastest thing the Super Nintendo had was F-Zero. And I would argue that's actually not even nearly as fast as Sonic could be even at its peak.
Well, you can't tell because you're behind and you're doing the mode 7, like
that's true.
The land is turning.
Yeah.
Whereas Sonic, you could outrun the screen.
Yeah, which was I would say it was a pretty incredible sense, right? It's a pretty powerful sort of feeling to have when you're going so fast, or you're going beyond the boundaries of the game in a sense.
Yeah,
I think it works in most instances. The last thing I want to mention before we go on to Sonic 2 is I think Sonic 1 has one of the most amazing opening levels ever. if not just for the music, again, because you recognize Green Hill Zone in anything. Like, you can hear the first few beats in anything, and you know it's Green Hill Zone. And you also, just, at least for me, I get that warm, fuzzy feeling, which is like that screen with like the ocean in the background, the brown platforms with the green trimmings on top, or anything like that. Like, it's just I think it's such a vibrant and happy game to look at most of the time, right? Like, the later levels get kind of dark in some instances, but I think Green Hill Zone is like the ultimate first impression, is what I guess we could say, right?
Well, that's the thing too, and we're about to talk about Sonic 2, but which has a similar, first level that's very visual and user friendly. But I remember Sonic 2, and then going back to Sonic 1, that first level, and there are in your brain certain like mechanisms that click, and you're thinking, is this kind of like Mario?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because usually the first Mario level has a little more green hills in the background, is a little more user friendly. And then about 8 seconds into the level, you realize it's a completely different game, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
I still remember thinking that like, oh, it's a typical kind of fun little platform. Oh, and then it grabs you. And I think that's why they make the first level so fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that you immediately get that hit, that dopamine hit. Now, if it goes away, World 2 or World 3, whatever, too late, you're already hooked.
Yeah.
They got you.
Yeah. And you're ready for it, too, because this game does have quite a bit of variety in its different zones. Like, there's Marble Zone, which I really love the music in that level. There's also, what else we got on here? There's a Spring Yard Zone, Labyrinth Zone, like you mentioned, Deucey, Starlight Zone, Scrap Brain, which is like this really heavy mechanized, like there's a lot of like chain link fences and whatnot. Like, even there's one cool area in that, I think it's that level, where you're going through like this giant cylinder, like this cage cylinder, and Sonic is spinning in there.
Yeah.
Like, that is such an awesome effect, because it conveys sort of a bit of 3D, but it's very obviously 2D, right? It's not really any sense of a third axis you can go on, but it gives you this instance that like this is sort of like a 3D world. It's just mapped to a 2D area.
Yeah. I'd say the opening levels of the Sonic games, because of that green, brown, and blue combo, it's so basic, but it's as iconic as the first level of Mario when the music hits. Because if you think about a lot of these like Sonic collectibles and stuff, the Lego Sonic set, just a little statue that might come with a game, a special edition, it's always him in a loop with the brown, the green, and the blue.
Yeah.
And you know what game you're looking at.
Right away.
It doesn't matter which one. That's Sonic.
Well, because for most of us, that first time we gained speed, and all of a sudden we were going on that loop-de-loop, that rush is something I think that then just is hardwired into our brains.
Yeah. One last thing I want to talk about before we move on to Sonic 2, because I think we should maybe we'll do like a tier list, but the special stages. Yeah, so these were varying degrees of rough, but the idea in each of these games is that you have to collect the Chaos Emeralds and you become Super Sonic at some point. But to do that, you have to get through a mini game where once you collect like 50 rings, you go through a checkpoint star thing, and you get transported to this separate minigame. The first Sonic minigame is this crazy labyrinth where it's like Sonic Spinball, where you're like Sonic coiled up, you're bouncing.
He's always in a ball. It's always rotating.
It's kind of like a pinball thing.
Oddly enough, this is like my favorite of the bonus levels.
So when I was a kid, it was really hard. Well, when I was a kid, it was really hard, right? But I really enjoy them because I do think they're pretty fun. Mm-hmm. But, as a kid, it was really disorienting because it's awkwardly bouncing, awkward scrolling.
Yeah.
It was really difficult.
You can sort of, I started to learn how to like jump at the right time. And manipulate with the reversals and everything. And I think Sonic 1 is the one game where I got the most Chaos Emeralds. I didn't get them all, but I got maybe...
I feel like it was easier because it's just a maze.
Yeah.
Like, if you keep at it, like, you eventually find it where... We'll get into the other ones, but the other games will involve a little bit more collecting, or sort of you have to do certain criteria to get the Chaos Emerald. I feel like they're a little bit more difficult, but they might play better.
This one, I was, like I said, I got maybe 3 or 4, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. And the other ones, I'm like, I'll get 1.
Yeah, it's pretty hard. Exactly. Yeah. So we'll go on to Sonic 2, which might be one of the biggest games ever and one of the biggest sequels ever. I'd say this is probably up there with like Street Fighter 2 as far as like significant sequels. This was released November 22nd, 1992. This was originally pitched in September 1991, but Sega of America thought it would be too soon for a sequel, which I find very funny that they thought it might be too soon when, nowadays they can't wait to churn out sequels sometimes. It's like, has it been a year?
And then also other companies wait like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that's the opposite.
Or 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, yeah. But they reversed this decision when they saw that Sonic 1 had caught fire. So by then they're like, okay, hey, could you get this out by holiday in 92? we already cost you a few months of development time. And the team here wanted to go all out for Sonic 2. They brainstormed a ton of ways to advance the original. One of the things, like I mentioned before, was the spin dash, which changed Sonic forever, frankly, because the whole backtracking to get momentum was eliminated. Here you could just hold down and just spin jump, which made this really badass revving sound.
Yeah.
And you see Sonic just spin really, really fast with like sort of a trail of smoke behind him. And he took off like 100 miles an hour, literally 100 miles an hour. And also I think the big thing here, this is when they were really touting blast processing as a marketing term. This was sort of like this instance that, like, you know, Sonic has blast processing, which they really didn't find what it was. They really just said like, this is the technology that makes him go fast, when in reality it was just, you know, the Genesis had a much faster processor, so they leveraged that into like a marketing term, which again, one kind of goes into your whole like Kleenex and Q-tip thing, where it's really just a hardware difference that was there to begin with.
Buzzwords.
And they utilized, just buzzwords, but they used it to position something that was not really what it was.
And our reaction as kids was, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. So in this one, they added a 2-player for the first time, so kids can play together. This was the first time they could include it because they ran out of time in the first game. They introduced Tails, whose name was Miles per hour, Miles per hour, which Sega of America thought wasn't a very appealing name, which I agree with. Like, I think it's a clever gimmick for miles per hour.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really roll off the tongue. This is like miles per hour. It just sounds weird. So Sega of America suggested Tails as an alternative, which again I think is like the most perfect name for him. He's this orange fox with 2 tails. It was also inspired by a character in Phantasy Star called Meow, which I thought was funny because I imagine they're probably a cat character. It's Myau, Meow, who also had 2 tails. And Sonic and Tails' relationship was also based on Dragon Ball's Piccolo and Gohan, which I guess I could kind of see as well now. Like, I don't really connect them, but I could see that loosely sort of relatable there. So this game was much bigger. There were 11 zones with 2 acts. The special stage in this one is like this really weird Mode 7 half pipe kind of thing, where once you collect your 50 rings and go through the checkpoints, you now go through this half pipe where you collect, I think you have to collect all the rings, and then you get the Chaos Emerald at the end.
It doesn't have to quite be all, because you can take a hit here and there. But
you lose rings with that too.
Yeah, but the pain in the ass with this one is that Tails follows you, and he will hit every mine.
Yeah. That's also the big change here too, is like whether you're playing 2-player or not, Tails is always following you. Like, he's just kind of like flying around, and I think it's really cool. I thought it was really charming because you have like the blue Sonic and you have the complementary orange Tails, right? It makes perfect sense color wise.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of floating around, and I don't even think you really collect rings. He's just really like your buddy's hanging out with you and just, you know, flying around, just like kind of being a sort of a pest of sorts.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of this game back in the day? Because this was, if you didn't play Sonic 1, everyone was playing Sonic 2 at this point. Like, this Sega had breached the sort of console market to the point where now people knew what the Genesis was, they knew what Sonic was, and now Mario and Super Nintendo are sort of like, they're really just kind of trailing Sonic in a lot of instances.
This was the reason I wanted a Genesis, but never got one, because it was probably the only thing I wanted on Genesis was Sonic 2. But this was what made me a fan of Sonic in any form. Like, if he was in a cartoon, if he was on a lunchbox or a shoe or something.
Shoe, yeah. He probably had shoes back then.
I wanted anything with Sonic on it. And then if I had friends with Genesis?
I always flip them. Genesis.
I would go over to their houses, not just yours, but like friends on the street too. And I'd be like, can we play Sonic?
Yeah.
And it helped that Sonic 2 now had the 2-player. It didn't matter who played as who, because really, like, if you were good at the game, then you could play as Sonic and you'd be okay. If you were bad at the game, you could play as Tails and never die.
Yeah, he had a little bit less abilities, I think, than Sonic, and a little bit less mobility, but so he couldn't drag the screen forward. Like, Sonic was still sort of the focus when you're playing 2-player. But Tails had just enough interactivity as a single player where it was really fun. Like, I played with my younger brother who enjoyed playing as Tails.
That's exactly
the whole point, right?
Yeah.
Like, Tails was much more approachable. He looks like a kid compared to Sonic in a sense.
Like, if you were growing up with a younger sibling, beforehand, you would just give him a controller and not plug it in. Mm-hmm. Whereas now Tails was there and you were like, play, jump around.
I think they implemented him in the most perfect way they could, because I think if you had two sort of Sonic level characters, it'd be even more chaotic to play through, I think.
You could even have your brother like beat the boss and you just stand back because he doesn't
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, he just gets knocked back. Yeah, and also there was sort of a race mode in here too where it was split screen, which didn't look that great because it's splitting in two, but it was sort of like a who could get through the level the quickest, I think, if I recall, which was really great. Like, that's not something I probably would have thought I wanted in Sonic back in the day, like, when I was playing Sonic 1. But it worked really well for two-player. Like, it was fun enough. Like, my buddy and I would play through it enough.
So I think Sonic 2, everything you both said, the multiplayer, the iconicness of it. I also think, at least for me and my friend group at the time, it was the first video game where we really started talking about rumors and secrets.
Yeah. It was during that era.
If you did this, then that. Oh, well, you didn't do it right. Oh, well, this and that. Other games had it way better, but this was the first one I remember. A lot of Playground. Oh, well, I heard from my cousin whose uncle works at Sega.
Yeah.
If you do this, Tails will do that. None of it was real, of course. The game was just whatever the game was. But I also remember we would spend hours on the playground. Never actually played Sonic together. We lived too far away, but we would spend hours on the playground, kind of arguing or talking about what you could do in this Sonic game.
Yeah.
And of course, there always was that whole thing. Well, I beat it. No, you didn't.
Yeah.
There's always that one kid who's like, no, I swear I did it this way. I found this glitch or found this code. And you're like, you're full of crap.
Yeah.
I didn't read it in GamePro. You're a liar.
Well, I have the Japanese version. No, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
I do remember this one did have a debug and sound test cheat, because that's how I would unlock Supersonic really easily. Is you could sort of add these toggles. You could also use a level warp. But what you could do with the debug code is that you could change in different objects, and you would hit C, and you would also paste those objects.
I remember that.
Yeah, so it could be an item box, it could be enemies, it could be a whole different thing. It was a really freaking cool cheat that, I was 7 or 8 years old. I don't know what debugging is. So obviously when I got older, I was like, wow, this is a full-on sort of like developer test mode in a sense, right? Like, you place these objects and, test things out. But what you could do to unlock Supersonic is you enter the code and you figure out whatever thing to sort of unlock them, and then you could spawn rings. So I'd be mashing C to get like 50 rings or whatever, run into them, and then I explode into Supersonic and I just blast through the level. So kind of going back to what you said, Juan, about sort of like those rumors and cheats and everything like that. This was the only cheat that I knew back then. That's the only one that mattered.
Was the only one that was real without a game genie.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
That's right. That's the only one that was sort of built in the game that wasn't based on schoolyard rumors.
The weird thing I thought of when it came to Sonic was like, these didn't have save files until 3.
Yeah.
But like, you had to do so much extra stuff if you wanted to get really cool endings and things, like collect enough rings to go into the bonus level, get the Chaos Emerald, and then there would be a Supersonic mode at some point, and either at the end or you could just change into them. And it's like, I never, in all of my years, even to this day, have I gotten all of the Chaos Emeralds and done Supersonic mode until like Sonic Adventure, when they forced you to, because it was part of the story.
Yeah.
But like beforehand, the Supersonic was almost as much of a rumor on the playground as it was like actually real, but I just never saw it.
I think that's what's great about this, though, is that it adds that layer of replayability, though, right? Because this thing is like, you could rush through this whole game in hour or two, depending on how good you are. And also, one thing with getting Supersonic and the Chaos Emeralds is you have to deal with getting a game over, right? You don't have so many lives and so many lives you can collect. So I think that's what made these games special, especially back then. It's like in an era where a lot of people forget like how short games were back then. Like they always bitch and moan now. It's like, oh, this game's only 10 hours, but it's like, this was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you have to have some sort of way to replay the game. I think that's a great way to do it, is introduce Chaos Emeralds and special stages where you'll probably fail a ton to get them, but if you master them, then you're rewarded with Supersonic, who's damn near invincible, flies around, he's like glowing. He looks like a Dragon Ball character. Like he looks amazing. He's got like stars all over him. It's just an incredible reward, and it makes the last boss fight a pushover on top of it.
Oh yeah.
Plus you get a special ending on top of it too, right? So I don't know if I ever did that legit back then. I just know that I definitely used that debug cheat a lot. Like if you ran a Supersonic, it's like, well, I'm just sitting here mashing C, spawn some rings. But I think this game, like I said, it's one of the most iconic sequels ever, one of the most iconic Genesis games ever. This probably sold even more Genesises than even Sonic 1 did.
Oh, for sure.
Granted, I know Sonic 1 ended up selling like 40 million after it was all said and done, probably across all ports, plus the pack-ins, plus separate sales. Sonic 2 sold around 6 million, which I would assume that's inclusive of the pack-in game, because Genesis did release a Genesis 2, which was like a smaller slim form factor Genesis. and then also a Genesis 3, which is even more
smaller,
compact. Yeah. But this was the packing game, like Sonic 1, and they had to repeat the success with Sonic 2.
Didn't Sonic 3 finally get packed in with like the Genesis 3 or something?
I don't know if it was Genesis 3. I have to imagine it had to have, because it would make no sense if they didn't pack in Sonic 3 in some way with some version of the Genesis, right? Because it's like they repeated the success twice. Why not do it a third time? I should look that up because I feel like that has to exist. Yeah. So before we get into Sonic 3, we'll get into a game that was released before Sonic 3, but I unfortunately never got to play, but Juan, I think you got to play this one a bit too. It's Sonic CD, released November 23rd, 1993. This was released alongside Sonic Chaos on the Game Gear and Sonic Spinball on what was called Sonic 3-on-1 Day. That's actually pretty cool to have 3 Sonic games. I think it was on the same day or in the same week. Development by this was once again led by Naoto Oshima. It takes advantage of the Sega CD's features like the anime cutscenes it has and the incredible music in this game. I'd say, if nothing else, the music in here is just freaking stellar. It sounds so good. Oshima also cited that Back to the Future was an inspiration for this game, which you can plainly see with the time traveling gimmick they included in here. This was developed in parallel to Sonic 2. So while that was happening, Yuji Naka was not a fan of how Sega Japan's sort of rigid policies, as they called it, as far as like their corporate policies. So he wanted to create a development team in the US with a whole new team. And that's where some people like Mark Cerny started, which he's sort of the architect of some of the the PlayStation systems. Really, really smart, brilliant guy. He's got his start in Sega Technical Institute, which developed Sonic 2 and Sonic CD. And Sega obviously wanted something to showcase the Sega CD, and this is why they had it, because the Sega CD, I think, launched in early 93. I can't recall when, right? It was around there. Yeah. Yep. And I know it came with Sewer Shark. That was sort of the packing game, which was this FMB sort of Dragon's Lair style game where you're going down like these inner tubes. And I think there's like, you attack things on the screen and then you have to like tap the button when it prompts you like to go left or right or something like that. I only played it once at a friend's house. It was not very good back then. I don't know if you have any experience with that one, Juan. Sewer Shark, no?
No, I heard of it. So Sonic CD has a special place in my heart. In 1993, I got 2 different things for Sega, and I want to say it was for my birthday / Christmas Day. My parents combined it in one because it was so expensive.
Yeah,
and I can't remember how I learned of the the Sega CD, but that's the only thing I wanted that year. So they said, okay, well, we'll get you that. It'll be both, because it was very expensive. So I got a Sega CD, and if y'all remember the physical activate octagon.
Oh, the activator! I wanted that. The activator for fighting games. I can't believe you had that.
I got a Sega CD and an activator together that same year as Christmas and my birthday, and Sonic CD was bundled with the Sega CD. So I remember coming home. Because I didn't get it in a box gift. We were at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
We bought it, came straight home, figured out how to attach it to the my Sega, put the CD in there, and gentlemen, let me tell you something. When all of a sudden on my television, there's a Sonic cartoon.
Yes, yeah.
That was the coolest thing I had ever seen in my life, because it was being generated from my gaming console, not from a VCR tape.
Like, you weren't watching TV.
Yeah,
exactly. I wasn't watching TV. I didn't put a VCR tape in. This was from a CD. And mind you, in those days, CDs were still kind of in their more early part of their, everyone having a CD player and a portable CD player.
Well, they're really expensive. That's the thing, is the early CD players were hundreds of dollars. Mm-hmm. The CDs probably cost $30 to $40, I would assume. I don't really know, but they were not cheap. This is very, very early CD.
That's right. So a lot of people were still just playing cassette tapes from their boomboxes. So now I'm watching a Sonic cartoon with, to your point, excellent music from my gaming console. I remember I could have probably fainted. I was so happy. I might have shed a tear or two. Now here's the really funny part. So that part happens. You boot up the game, the screen comes on. I'm not sure what I expected. And looking back, I now kind of understand everything. But all of a sudden I start playing the game and I'm like, this is Sonic 2.
Yeah, well, because
wait a minute. This is I've played this game kind of not obviously the levels were different, the storyline was different. I meant that the little guy on my screen wasn't doing anything remarkable. Now we'll talk about some of the changes, But essentially, it's the same.
It's a lot of the same
Sonic games
Yeah.
I'd been playing for the last 2 years up to that point.
And that's the thing, really the big differentiator here beyond the Sega CD enhancements is this whole time travel gimmick it has. And I can understand, like, if I was a kid, like if I was, 8, we're the same age. If I was like 8 or 9 around then, I think it would have been a little bit hard for me to grasp the time travel stuff, because at first glance, you're right. This, if you didn't have this hooked up, or if you weren't watching a video, you might just think this is Sonic 1. Like, it does look a little bit better because of the Sega CD as far as like the colors and the depth of colors it has. But at first glance, you might just think, well, isn't this just Sonic 1? Oh, it's Sonic CD.
Yeah, because you don't have Tails anymore following you around, and it's just Sonic running around. I do say there's a lot more colors, it seems, than the previous two games.
Yeah, it's just because the Sega CD is enhanced.
Yeah,
color palette. Yeah,
and there's some more special effects, like when you're going into the time travel. But when we're little, we don't grasp the concept of having like 3 different versions of each level are packed into this CD. We're just like, oh, this is a game with some levels.
Yeah, you're looking at sort of the literally surface level, right? You're not
Yeah.
kind of going beneath that. And that's really the big differentiator is the time travel gimmick here, where there are 3 parts where there's a past, present, and future version. And then it kind of ties into the story here where you have to sort of go back to the past to take care of certain things there. Like, I think it's like
There's like a machine
Yeah, it's like a hidden transport is what it is.
Yeah.
To get the good future of that level. And then once you get the good future in all the levels, that unlocks the best ending. Also, you also have to collect the emeralds and the bonus stages in here, where this one's really weird. It's sort of like a Mode 7, like Mario Kart-ish. You're chasing these UFOs to kind of like knock them out, right? It's very bizarre. Like, I hadn't played this until I forgot what collection had Sonic CD for the first time, because this was the game. This was the reason I wanted a Sega CD back then.
The Mega Collection on like PS2.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that finally had it, and that's where I first played this one too. Up until then, actually, whenever I saw the word Sonic CD, I always thought it was a little more. I kind of confused with Sonic 3D or 3D Blast.
Oh, okay. That's
yeah. So when I finally played it on a collection, I was like, oh wait.
Yeah, this is not what I thought it was.
This is actually better than Sonic 3D. I wanted to play this more now.
Yeah.
I still didn't fully grasp the time travel aspect to it. I was like, when I would go past the little signs, I'm like, oh yeah, that's funny. And then the sparks come. I'm like, oh, okay. And then sometimes the level would change if I got fast enough for long enough. And I didn't realize, though, that it had any effect on endings or anything like that.
Me neither. And that's something that maybe the manual explained. By the time, like, on that collection, I don't think I had anything close to a manual. So I think, and that's just a sort of a relic of the time, right? Where it doesn't fully explain what you're supposed to do. You probably had to rely on like magazines, or maybe the manual did kind of give you an idea of what you're supposed to do with each level, because it is pretty incredible that there are sort of 3 distinct styles to the past, present, and future. So there's only, so many levels, and there's 7 zones with 3 acts each.
Well, so it's Back to the Future inspired. There's 4 versions of every level. So you start off in the present, and then you go to the past, and then depending on your actions of the past, you either get a good future or a bad future.
Yeah.
So it's literally Back to the Future. So it's you go to the past, and then you either come back and Biff is in charge of everything,
or you have the almanac or not.
Right. Or you come back and your family's intact and you have a big monster truck.
And they're actually doing better, yeah.
Yeah, which again, hearing it now as an adult, you're thinking, wow, that's awesome. That's an awesome
especially
Sonic
for
game.
93, pretty badass, I would say.
Yeah.
In my most recent like replay to prepare for today, though, now that I knew about the time traveling, I was like, okay, I'm going to really focus on that. And then I realized it's kind of tough because, like, you know how Doc always said, where we're going, we don't need roads. They needed a lot more roads in this game. Yeah, you need
roads in here. Like, because you have to go past the sign pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You have to have a lot of momentum to get through.
And then you have to maintain that momentum for a long time, but everything gets thrown at you in the meantime.
Well, again, it's Back to the Future 1 inspired.
Yeah.
Not Back to the Future 2. So you need the 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You need a sort of... which, again, as an adult thinking back, you're brilliant.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you're like, why am I...
and then,
why is this happening?
And then, like, at some parts in the first level of all things, like, I would spin past the future one. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to the future. Before I could, though, I'd spin past the past one. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to the past now. Like,
yeah, so it's like the idea is there, but obviously it's like not everything was as streamlined as it could be. But again, I think this is also sort of uncharted waters for the most part too, right? This is, like we talked about, CDs are still early. And Sega CD is still trying to gain momentum, I should say.
How many other games even tried this? Like, if there's a time traveling aspect, Usually it's just built into set points.
Yeah, I don't know. That's the thing, is I'm not sure what other games would be bold enough to try this back then, and especially like a platform game too, because Mario would never do this back then either. Like that Mario's Time Machine, but that's a totally different game.
Man, that would have been awesome if like there's a bad future where Bowser's taken over everything.
Yeah, like everything's kind of bleak and post-apocalyptic or something. Yeah, it'd be really cool. But again, to do it with Sonic, and then this really is this. I know this isn't saying much, obviously, but this is definitely one of the best Sega CD games out. And there's only so many great games on the Sega CD, and this was the best-selling one, which is no surprise. It sold like 1.5 million copies, which isn't a whole lot, but that's a lot considering how many Sega CDs sold or didn't sell, depending on how you want to frame that, right? Yeah. But this was, again, it's the Sega CD's trouble because it's not the proper generational leap that you'd expect it, because it's really just sort of a glorified Genesis with CD quality audio and effects, right? So that's kind of the challenge here, is that they tried to push Sonic further, but they still had the limitations and whatever limited understanding they had of the Sega CD format.
Like, was it just playing through the Genesis hardware, but with the memory
in tandem? So it would actually take some of what it was doing on the Genesis, like as far as like some of the graphical effects, like I think it's like some of the layering or some of the graphical effects on there.
Yeah.
And they would do some things from the CD.
Oh, okay.
So that was the hard part. That's why you couldn't play them on their own, because they still needed to use the hardware of the other. So it's the same with the 32X, where like you'd have some graphical layers displayed on the 32X and some being pulled from the Genesis. It's really weird because it's almost like they're being patched when you put the card on.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about now, because I know Sega has failures, but I will always give them credit for trying to push boundaries with sort of, the Genesis in 93 was 5 years old, right? From 1988 to 93. And you're still trying to make that system last, which, like it or not, Nintendo did say they were going to do the same thing, right? With the Nintendo PlayStation. They wanted to take that sort of same instance of adding an attachment to the Super Nintendo to sort of extend its lifespan before that fell apart. But that's what Sega had been doing already. Like they had the Power Base Converter for Master System. They have a new system with the Sega CD. It looked like Frankenstein with the 32X. But, the purpose was you could have your Genesis do all this cool stuff if you want to put the money into it.
To go back to what Juan was saying way back when they were being outsold 10-1 and everything, and they were just swinging, throwing haymakers. They needed this because Super Nintendo came out, and they might have had a slow start with their games, but they had better music. And,
it was technically superior in a lot of ways.
And better
Absolutely.
graphics right out of the box. And the Genesis was working on like 89 hardware.
Exactly.
So yeah, you needed something to like kind of kick it up a notch just to even stay level.
Yeah. So it's tough when I say like, Sonic CD is one of the best, if not the best Sega CD game. But, that system had its own trials and tribulations that it just never really came to meet any potential it could have had. Because I just think it was just probably too early, like in 93 and 92, to have a CD-based console. Way too early in some instances.
But it's good that like Sonic CD came out the way it did, because it fits right into this collection that we're talking about.
It does. Yeah. So I think it's still important for what it is. I think it's great that people are able to experience it now, because again, the Sega CD sold so poorly back then, and it's pretty great that Juan was right out there on pretty much on day one. We'll call it, right?
You never said, how often did you use the activator though?
Oh yeah, how was that experience?
You want a quick 2-minute activator. So, did you ever own an activator?
No, I was desperate to get one because.
Did you ever play one at a friend's house?
No, because no one I knew owned it. I saw it in the store once, wanted it, and never got it.
Okay, so I apologize if you know exactly what an activator is and you played it. So I'm just saying something that you already know. But to my two friends that have not, and any of the audience members who haven't, the way they advertise this thing, and this is why I think we wanted it so badly, was that you would. It's this basically these octagon-shaped strips that go around you, and in the commercials and the way in the advertisements, in the newspapers, magazines, they would show either a gamer or a fit-looking, what looked like to be a fighter, doing a punch or a kick, and then it would show the screen and the character on the screen doing a punch and the kick. The implication is that this thing could sense if you punched or kick, the character on the screen would punch or kick. For the generation at that time growing up on Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat, the idea that if you punch, Ryu punches. If you do the fireball motion, Ryu does the fireball punch motion. If you do the get over here from Scorpion, the hand gesture, it was basically the greatest thing you could think of. And that's what I thought the activator was.
Because that's what they sold us.
Yeah.
Because that's what they sold us. Even the box that the activator comes in, I will never forget this, comes with a fit-looking martial artist doing a sidekick.
With motion blur to sort of show how kinetic it is.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
Right. He's doing a sidekick And again, I'm gung ho. So we again go to Toys R Us. God, I miss Toys R Us.
Yeah.
Toys R Us. Take it home, hook it up, connect it. Right. So you connect the octagon shaped pieces around you. Firing up Mortal Kombat on my Sega Genesis. That's right, the one with the real blood, not the fake blood from Super Nintendo. And my guy wasn't really doing anything when I punched or kicked. So, okay, let's read the manual. We had plugged it in without reading the manual. We thought it would just do what the commercial said it would do. But my guy didn't even move. So what this activator actually was each octagon piece corresponded to a button on the remote.
Mm-hmm. Oh no.
Notice how I say octagon. So that's 8 buttons. So if you're thinking to yourself, why would you need 8 buttons? Because the directional pad was also one of the 8 sensors. So you had 4 directional sensors and 4 buttons. And you had to move your kick. You had to move something so the sensor would trip so that it would register on the game. So now if you're kind of following with me, yes, technically, if I wanted my guy to punch, if I tripped the punch button sensor, he would punch. And that's it. Because if I wanted him to take a step forward, I had to trip the forward button sensor. Do you see the problem with this?
And also how this worked is that there were sort of these infrared sort of beams, as we'll call them, that were coming out of the floor.
Yeah.
And also I think there were some limitations, if I recall correctly, where it said you had to be within a certain height of certain ceilings. That's
exactly right. That was going to be
Yeah. So that was the challenge. Like this was really just like you're passing your hand over the sensor, which cuts through the sort of beam, as we'll call it. And now would sort of translate the motion into the game.
So how it finally translated to get a functional version of playing a fighting game was we got on our knees to be close enough to the sensor and waving our hands as best we could to go like forward punch, back kick, block, and we looked so stupid, and so we played that activate. So that this, oh man, and this sucked. I think it was like 120 plus tax, and I think that's about right. 120 plus tax of those dollars. So hundreds in today's dollars. Yeah. We played that activator for approximately 3.5 hours on day 1 and never took it out of the box again.
That was the one thing I was kind of glad my parents didn't get me, because I was all into fighting games and I wanted that. And there was also, I forgot what it was called, but there's also a vibrating sort of a chest thing where you could feel the impact. I forgot what that was called too. So I think the idea is like, you get both of those, you could feel the impact in the hits, plus you could use motion controls, because that's really what it was. It was sort of like a very, very, very early precursors like the Kinect and Wii motion controls, right? Except it's from 1991 to 3, and it didn't work. Yeah.
but I remember me and my buddy toward the end of our little 3-hour thing. So I was on my knees on kind of one side of the octagon, and then he was on his knees on the other side of the octagon, and we were both like trying to communicate like forward, punch, kick, and then we were trying to trip. It took the two of us waving our hands over the sensors to try to function our little fighter guy. That was Johnny Cage. Yeah, that was...
No.
Yeah. You can buy them for about $40 now on eBay boxed. I looked at one just to have for shits and gigs.
I told my parents I loved it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Never played it again.
All right. Well, we have an activator impression that was pretty great from 30 years later. So the final games, plural, we'll get to today is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and also Sonic and Knuckles, which... when you come down to it, it's really just one big game, but they released them as 2 different games. So,
I didn't realize they released this far apart, though.
Yeah, I kind of figured, because I was definitely on the hype train for both, and this felt right. So Sonic 3 released February 2nd, 1994, and Sonic and Knuckles came out later that year in October 1994. These were again developed by STI, who had done Sonic 2 and Sonic CD. Development for this started around 1993, January 1993. And actually, the original idea was going to be an isometric game that became Sonic 3D Blast. So thank God they changed course because they went back to 2D after they realized that they just didn't have enough time for this, which, again, is more of a blessing than you can imagine, because I imagine at some point we'll cover more Sonic games. And Sonic 3D Blast is a really interesting game to cover because it's just it's a directional change for Sonic that didn't pay off, is what I'll say.
Again, Sega was like reaching ahead of its time.
Yeah, and also the sound was out then too, so I feel like that was more of more of a gimmick for the Saturn too. So I would love to talk about the Saturn at some point too.
Yeah.
But Sonic just became very troubled after the Genesis, is what I'll say. So Michael Jackson had also created parts of the soundtrack, but he was uncredited for this, and he left development at some point. I don't know what the story was there, if he just maybe had some other commitments going on. And unfortunately, his music is usually replaced in re-releases after this. So Ducey, I know you played the Sonic Plus or Sonic Origins Plus, and that uses some songs from the prototype, which I've listened to them and they're not very good.
No,
definitely as not good as some of the original Sonic 3 ones. But again, like if you didn't know that before, you probably won't notice it, and be like, oh, this is a bop.
Well,
bop and a half.
I've always played Sonic 3 on collections. I don't remember playing it too much at your house. So yeah, I've always played it on collections, and I'm sure they were all replaced by then.
Yeah, but I'd say it's probably maybe more recent collections, because I can't remember if like the Mega Collection had it replaced or not either. I can't recall. So this game, these games, I should say, I keep trying to. It's two different games in a sense, but they're one game. Sonic 3 and Sonic Knuckles were actually planned to be one single game, but there was a combination of different factors happening at the time. Like they needed more time, more development time. Sega had committed to McDonald's to have like this sort of Happy Meal toy promotion going on.
I remember some of those toys.
Me too. I had a few of them.
Yeah,
they were really freaking awesome. I think my brother probably still has our Knuckles one, which is like the little mini game, handheld kind of thing. But also, in addition to this, cart storage sizes were an issue. So they made this really massive game that could not fit on a single Sega cartridge. And I think might have been some shortages at the time, but also you have to figure larger storage capacity on a cart, that's going to be more expensive for a developer and also at the end of the day, the consumer. So they ended up splitting this into two games. They wanted the scope to be even larger than Sonic 2, and they also had like a ton of ambitious ideas. The biggest introduction here as far as characters is Knuckles the Echidna, which I thought was such a badass looking character when I was a kid. Like that red, he's got like these kind of, they look like dreads kind of thing, like for his hair.
I mean, they were.
Yeah. But I just thought like Knuckles was like the coolest character because he could crawl on walls, he could hover. Like he was just that badass new character you wanted to play as.
Yep. Yeah. It made so much sense too that you already had a blue and a yellowish orange. Red was like the other primary color you needed.
Yeah, and very bold too. Like he has just that very vibrant, bright red it's a little bit darker, but he's just so recognizable right out the gate. And in this game, he starts out as a villain. Like he's sort of the adversary to Sonic, as he's sort of a Robotnik's minion.
And he was educational, because how many of us knew what an echidna even was when we were that little?
I mean, if anything else, like I don't know what I don't know if I knew what a hedgehog was before Sonic. Frankly, I don't know. Tails is a fox. That's very easy, but a hedgehog, I'm not sure I had much familiarity with it, and definitely not an echidna. Like they went for more eccentric animals, I guess we could call them. I don't know what other word you use for that.
Yep.
Yeah. So Sonic 3 on its own it's a pretty great game. It's still literally half a game. It has 6 zones with 2 acts each. It kind of falls in the same sort of flow of Sonic 2 and 1, where they kind of kept these different themes around there. I think one of my favorites across all Sonic games, and maybe the same for you guys, is anytime they do any kind of casino kind of gimmick.
Yeah.
Right?
Great.
I think that's like the most... To me, that also illustrates it also just goes in tandem with Sonic's abilities in general, like the speed and like all the bright lights, the pinballing and everything like that. It just works so well. So East Level here is very themed to its own kind of thing. Like there's Carnival Night, there's Angel Island, there's Hydro City, which I don't know if you call it Hydrocity. I'm not sure what the proper wording for that is.
I've always said Hydrocity, I think.
Is it?
Yeah.
It seems like Hydrocity to me too. I don't know. Hydro City, it could be both.
Yeah.
And there was also Marble Garden, Ice Cap, and the final level is Launch Base.
The thing about these, though, there's only 2 acts, but like they are long.
They're pretty lengthy, and the levels are a lot more vertical. And also, that's partly because of Knuckles later on, where you need that verticality with him, because he has so much mobility to go up walls and everything like that.
Can't you also play as Tails, who can fly up?
Yeah, Tails is much more fleshed out in here. Like he has his own abilities. He can use his propeller tails to float around and something like that. He was I would use him because he could be a little bit easier to jump big jumps.
Oh yeah,
because you just float over them, right? Or use Knuckles. But Tails was actually really fun to play in this game. There's more power-ups. And again, like one thing I think we can give Sega credit for is in each of the Sonic games, like they really did try to make them bigger and better, because they could have played it safe. They could have just really rehashed what the earlier game was, but they really did try to make this a bigger and more bold game each time.
One of my favorite things that they upgraded in this one was you don't get just a shield to take an extra hit. You get like the lightning magnet one,
Yeah.
or the flame one, or even the bubble one to finally combat the water.
Yeah, and they all had special abilities too. Like the fire one, if you double tap jump, like it'll be like a fireball.
Yeah,
thing.
you would shoot forward.
And I think the water one, like it makes you bounce.
Yeah,
so you have a little bit higher of a bounce. Plus, you have like a shield. The shield also attracts rings, which I thought was always a really cool gimmick because it's like one hit and you lose all your rings. That means you're one hit from death. But you have like the sort of safeguard to collect rings for you. So really cool ideas that I do think were pretty meaningful for the time, and the levels were a lot more vast and larger. But it's interesting because a few months later, there's another Sonic game. There's Sonic and Knuckles, which got the hype train for me going all over again. But did you guys play Sonic 3 before Sonic and Knuckles? Did you get no relation at all? Wow. So Sonic and Knuckles came out in October. This really is the other half of Sonic 3.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre to say. But, when I was a kid, I assumed it was just another Sonic game because it came out way later. I remember I didn't get Sonic 3. I always rented it because I just never bought it. And then Sonic and Knuckles came out, and I didn't know they were the same year. Frankly, I can't fully remember. I have no relation to the time back then. Like it could have been a year later. It could have been 6 months later.
But you did get Sonic and Knuckles,
I
right?
did get that,
Yeah,
because I had rented it. I borrowed it from friends, and I did buy it at my favorite store that I'd like to mention that doesn't exist, The Warehouse. And the big thing about this game is the freaking lock-on tech. Mm-hmm. One of the most awesome innovations I think I've ever seen from the early 90s, and especially from Sega, where you can add Sonic 3 or Sonic 2 and even Sonic 1 for a very specific reason, and it would change the game. So if you locked on Sonic 3, as in physically putting the cart on Sonic and Knuckles, you now have like a 17 act or 17 level, 17 world game or whatever it is on top of that, and it's just one massive freaking game. And also, it also adds things like you can play as all three characters, I think, to get like hyper emeralds now, because that's like the gimmick when you connect Sonic 3 and Knuckles. If you go through all the stages and collect all the emeralds, you now get like what do they call them here? It was Hyper Sonic, Hyper Knuckles, and Hyper Tails. So it's like the equivalent of like Super Saiyan, Super Sonic. Now you have like an even more extreme version of that.
Yeah, isn't there a level after Super Saiyan?
I don't even know.
Oh, there's a few.
Yeah,
there's a few.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. But like Sonic was the pioneer for that.
Yeah.
Like,
and the interesting thing is you could play Sonic and Knuckles on its own, which is what I did. But still, at that point, it's still half of a game, which you don't really know when you're playing it because it just kind of, it's the same flow of things. Like you go through your acts and it's just a half a game, but it plays fine. There's no save feature, no multiplayer if you do the standalone, and you can only play as Sonic or Knuckles. Mm-hmm. So again, it's pretty interesting that you lock on Sonic 3 and then it adds all these enhancements, and again, you're getting the full game. And there's a lot of YouTube videos. I recommend you go check them out that kind of talk the technical aspects of how that works. To put it simply and distill it to its purest form, it's really how when you put the previous game on there, it sort of like acts as like a patch to the next game, right? Mm-hmm. So it sort of just takes the data on there, it patches it, and then you have this big full game, and it plays off both cards. It's really incredible.
My favorite part about that was going back to Sonic 2.
Yeah.
And then you can play as Knuckles in Sonic 2.
That's why I wanted to talk about it. Yeah, it's retroactively adding a character to a game that came out 2 years before, which to me blows my mind because they weren't planning Sonic and Knuckles by Sonic 2, right? They were trying to get a Sonic 3.
Yeah.
And yet they retrofitted this to add Knuckles to a game that he was not designed for. But they did it because they felt like the verticality of Sonic 2 was actually helpful and conducive with Knuckles' abilities. They tried to do it with Sonic 1, but they said it just didn't work as well, which makes sense because that's even more primitive than Sonic 2, right? But again, the fact that you could lock on Sonic 2, play through the entire game as a brand new character, also just added another sort of level of replayability to that game as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the main thing, was because I know I played Sonic 2 the most, even though I never owned it. And so I wanted to go back and play Knuckles in that game that I knew so well.
Yeah, and it worked really well because, again, Knuckles was a badass character, and it's just really unusual to see him in Sonic 2 levels,
So, Tails was available then at that point in all the games?
Yes.
Like if you did the lock on.
If you did lock on, yes.
So,
Sonic 3 and Knuckles, he was available.
So could you just fly through all the...
Yeah. I think you probably could, right? I mean, you probably would hit some sort of boundary at some point, but I mean, technically you could fly through if you wanted to, because that's also a safe way to do it. You're not speeding through anything.
I mean, Tails was always the little brother or the younger sibling character. So even when you could play as him solo, it was like, easy mode.
Yeah. But one cool thing they did out of Sonic 3 that I thought was really cool and kind of charming in a sense was Tails could actually carry Sonic.
Oh, that's right.
So they had those sort of co-op abilities where it's like if you position Tails while he was flying over Sonic, Sonic would grab Tails' hands.
Yep.
And Tails is just like floating over an area. And I thought that was so freaking cool back then because, you know, if you didn't want to make that jump, well, just get your buddy to carry you over. It's really awesome. Or carry you higher to platforms you couldn't normally reach, right? So again, it's just... It's a testament to how Sega really did try to advance the series with each iteration. And I think the Sonic and Knuckles lock-on, to me, is like one of the more mind-blowing pieces of tech of the early 90s. Like, it's just so incredible. You can't attach it to Sonic 1 because, again, when they were developing this, they really assumed that people would be just locking on whatever cards, right? Which I did.
Let's put Altered Beast on here. Like, what else can we throw on? Golden Axe with Knuckles.
Yeah. Now people do that for ROM hacks.
Yeah.
That's great. But if you do lock on Sonic 1, then it has like this whole separate puzzle game because the bonus stage in Sonic 3, you're going around these sort of 3D sphere and you have to collect, I think it's the blue orbs, right, and avoid the red ones. So if you connect Sonic 1, you now have, I don't know how many levels, it's probably like 50 or 100. I don't know how many they put in there. But you also have a pass-through feature in there too. So it's its own separate sort of separate game if you lock on Sonic 1 because they knew that people probably had Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and they're going to try it. So this is, you know, in retrospective, it's really just it's really incredible how they just sort of retrofitted this future game or this new game into 3 different games from the past, right? Because Sonic 3, Sonic 2, and Sonic 1. And you get all these new functionalities with it. You add a whole new layer of replayability. It's pretty badass, I would say, for $50 at the time.
I think one of my favorite innovations, quote unquote, for 3 and Knuckles is they finally had save files.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And you need it for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It's huge.
Yeah, all the levels individually are huge. So you might run a marathon to get through that, and then it's like, oh no, it's dinner time, and I gotta save because you're not getting through either of those games in a single sitting.
Yeah, I think, you know, obviously Sonic 1 and 2 are a little bit more digestible in terms of size, but by 3, they really cranked up the ambition, and it can suck because, like you said, Sonic 3 has no save feature, I don't think, right? So it's just...
No, it does.
Oh, it does?
Yeah.
Was it Sonic... Okay, so it's both, yeah. But it's like, I can't imagine going through those games and stopping halfway through, or like, you know, let's say like you came over to something like, all right, well, I guess I gotta turn this off because we don't want to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles right now.
We just got to push pause and then walk away.
Yeah.
And nobody touched the Sega.
So I don't know. I'd say out of all 3 games, like I think it's Sonic 2 is probably my favorites. I don't know about you guys if you have a favorite out of them.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where I agree with you. Sonic 2 is my favorite, but it has a lot more to do with the feelings, as opposed to maybe the game itself.
I agree.
And definitely playing it now as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Like I prefer Sonic. By the way, the correct title is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That is the actual title of that game. But that's the best game as an adult. But when someone asks me my favorite, Sonic 2. I just remember.
My favorite would be Sonic 2. That's all I remember when I think of songs and stuff, except for Flying Battery Zone, which has been stuck in my head the past couple of days. But for some reason, I liked Sonic and Knuckles separate.
Oh, interesting.
From Sonic 3, like, detached.
Yeah, just standalone.
Yeah, standalone. And I would put that second on the overall list. For some reason... Even though it was about the levels were about the same size, they were really long. They required a save file. I don't know. I just think I liked Sonic alone or Knuckles alone.
Well, I think that's the big thing is when I was a kid, because again, I didn't know they were supposed to be connected. I just thought it was its own separate game. I thought the box art looked awesome. And to me, I think it's a totally fine standalone game, right? It's a great Sonic game on its own. It's just incredible when you lock on the third game. All of a sudden, it's like double the size, double the length, right?
Yeah, and then now that I've played it in more collections, Sonic CD is quickly moving up my list.
Yeah.
But the time traveling thing is really like a lot to do in a Sonic game. Like Sonic was always about gotta go fast, go left to right as quick as possible. And now it's like, okay, search out the past ones. And once you're in the past, search out those machines you have to destroy. Oh, also don't forget the Chaos Emeralds and stuff like that. But it's like, that is pretty in-depth for a game. Like, it could come out today and be, like, what you want in a game.
Well, it's kind of like what you're leading on to is, like, it's a pretty big formula change because, like you said, Sonic is very direct. To get from point A to point B really as fast as you can, where Sonic CD they really cranked up the exploration aspect because, like you said, so you have to go through the different time points and figure out what you're looking for those hidden transporter or transponder things. And you have to, look for those. They're not like just right there right out the time gate or anything like that.
Yeah.
So they did try to add that, and it's kind of interesting because that's ultimately what the later Sonic games evolved to, where it's like they have some sort of exploration aspect to them, where you have like your general Sonic levels, but then like you might have to play as Knuckles and explore an area to get these 3 gems or something like that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So it's interesting that like Sonic CD in a way is kind of the roots of Sonic Adventure with the exploration aspect and then time travel gimmick, but it's still a traditional Sonic game, where Sonic Adventure is a little bit more on the 3D, like we're kind of going in a different direction kind of side,
I will say, on top of all of this, like jumping into present day, thank goodness for Sonic Mania.
Oh, Sonic Mania is fantastic. Have
Like-
you played that one?
I have not. No.
Oh my god, you got to.
So some people outside of Sega, they took, was it Sonic 2? And they were like sort of remastering the levels and everything. And Sega saw them and was like, hey, you want a job?
Oh, that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
so they started putting in the Sonic 2 levels that they remastered. They started making their own levels, and they made this entire game that kind of collects levels from the original games plus their original levels, and then just made one big Sonic Mania. And you can play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy. A couple other characters were DLC.
Yeah, they added a couple. I forgot the name. I don't know if one's called like Honey, but it's like sort of like a gold looking
There's like
hedgehog kind of character.
There's like a cat, I think, and a badger or something. Like,
yeah, something like that.
But yeah, it's just like, if you don't want to play the individual games because of like Sonic 1's jankiness in the original, like you can still play some of those original levels in an all new, easier way.
It's really just a fan game that Sega, like Ducey said, Sega said, like, you guys just want to make a full blown game for this, and also the team they're very specific on making sure they get Sonic's feel right, like with the physics down to like just how the momentum and everything like that. So that's also why it's one of the best rated Sonic games in the last 20 years, because it is the ultimate throwback made by fans who know what makes Sonic really successful.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't played it yet, but you should
Sonic
definitely
Mania.
check it out.
When did it come out?
Geez, it's probably been out for like 8-9 years now.
I was going
It's
to
been
say
a while.
it was in the teens.
Well, then,
20-teens.
to be fair, probably the only reason, well, not the only reason, the biggest reason I haven't played it before is because anything that had the name Sonic that came out during that time.
Ah, yeah.
Was,
No, that's totally fair.
In my mind,
Yeah.
I saw it and I just shrugged my shoulders and moved on.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people moved on because we covered like the really like the top tier Sonic games, which were really early, right? The first 4 or 5 games. And then at some point after the Dreamcast, I would say even the Dreamcast is kind of when things changed. And, Sega stopped making hardware. But then after that, like with Sonic Heroes, which was solid, but all those other games started to go further away from what made Sonic Sonic. And Sonic Mania is the antithesis of that, where this is what Sonic was, and this is what you want.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? So it's really, really good. It's worth checking out now. I'm sure it's on sale for like $4 or probably damn near free almost now. I don't know. It's worthwhile.
Also, if you have any access to like handhelds, like the Sonic Advance games on Game Boy Advance,
Oh, those are really
yeah.
solid.
those were a return to form too.
Yeah. So Sonic's history is spotty after
Yeah.
this. There's definitely not. It's definitely not all bad, but I'd say we could probably pick apart more of the bad stuff than there are good games. I would say.
Yeah, it'd be weird if we tried to do some future episodes because there's a lot in the middle I did not play.
Yeah.
After like Sonic Adventure 2, I was like, no, I don't want him to turn into a werewolf. What are we doing, people?
I actually heard that game is like, it's funny. Like that game got crapped on at the time, it got solid reviews, and now people are looking at it more fondly now, which is interesting.
Of course.
Yeah, it's always the case. It always takes like that 15-20 year gap where people are like, you know what, this wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Right. So it always works out that way. But yeah, there's less great Sonic games than there are great ones, I think, especially in specific eras.
Yes.
But for the games we covered today, Phil, is any final words you want to talk about? Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, Sonic CD, Sonic Mania, Sonic anything?
I just remembered while we were talking about like enemies have always been just Robotnik in a different vehicle.
Yeah.
It's hilarious how he just keeps trying and we just keep bashing him down. But Sonic CD introduced my favorite enemy and probably my favorite character in all of Sonic lore, and that's Metal Sonic.
We didn't get to talk about Metal Sonic. Yeah, he was he was in the first game, right? Wasn't he? He was the boss?
It was a different... Metal Sonic in that incarnation
Was like a
Sonic CD. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that was the first Prince. Yeah. He's also on the cover, I believe, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is one of the more badass characters to be introduced because he's a mechanized Sonic.
Yeah, I was like, this is awesome, and Robotnik finally did something right. Oh no, there he goes. He got defeated again.
Yeah, which is great because it's supposed to be like, all sort of parallel that's like a Mega Man game where maybe they had like some Pro Man equivalent or something, some minion that Dr. Wily made, and well, he didn't exactly pan out like you thought he would.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forgot about Metal Sonic. I can't believe we didn't get to talk about that one. Yeah, I would say that's one of the more badass editions that isn't as used as much as I hope he would too, because he's been in some of the racing games. I think he's in some other ones.
He was in Sonic Drift 2, and now he's in the most recent Sonic Cross Worlds that came out.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, there's different ones, right? There's Metal Sonic, there's Mecha Sonic.
Oh yeah.
Right. But one of the things I'll just say about all of these games that really stood out at the time, and I think it's, again, nowadays we have everything at our fingertips, but just the speed mechanic alone at that time was so revolutionary. And I think for people of a certain age, us, and any of our listeners like us, I think the reason Sonic resonates with us, whether they end up making 50 more great games or 50 more horrible games, the reason these 3-4 games really resonate with us was because they showed us what gaming could be. Right? We knew gaming was great, and Mario was fantastic, and Pac-Man was fantastic, and so a lot of those early games, the Legend of Zelda, other RPGs, like we got it, but this was the first one that said, because again, everything was Nintendo. We talked about it. Everything was Nintendo. This was the first one that really opened our eyes to, well, other people can get into the playground and do something completely different, and it's also awesome.
Yeah, a total differentiator from everything else.
This sort of feels like it opened the door at a very early age to speedrunners.
Yeah.
Because this was the first game, Sonic 2, Sonic 1, whenever I played them, this was the first game where the counter counted up. Like every other game had a time limit and you better get to the end before the end. But this one was like, no, just see how fast you can get through this.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you when I think this is, blast processing was a marketing gimmick, but whether you can distill it to what it is, it worked because it did show how fast games could be. Because again, we really hadn't seen anything like this. I'd say the quickest game I'd seen produced to this might be the Turbo Tunnel and Battletoads.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that might be the sort of fastest scrolling ever, but this is the first instance where you're like, holy crap, like I could barely see him. Like I remember one of the names they gave him was like the Blue Blur, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right? Because he was going so fast you couldn't see him. And how perfect of a name is Sonic for something going 1,000 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
It's so, like, everything just serendipitously worked so well for Sega with this character and like their mascot. They got what they wanted, something as iconic as Mickey Mouse. Like there's Sonic's everywhere now. Like he's in TV shows, commercials, marketing stuff, other promotions.
Finally, some good live action movies.
Some of the best live action movies, frankly, for gaming.
Well, if I may, and I don't know, I'm sure you have it in your research. When they were developing the character himself, forget about the gameplay, they did something that, again, in retrospect, is absolutely brilliant. So Mario, the other big guy at the time, was this wholesome guy, right? Plumber trying to save
blue collar.
Trying to save. And they made the fast dude in the early 90s.
Oh, the 90s
have
attitude.
an attitude.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
brilliant.
Yes, very good point.
Just because they could have made, to your point about Mickey Mouse, they could have just made him a wholesome hero. Nope, there he was, wagging his finger.
Yeah.
Wearing his Michael Jackson boots.
Taunting the bad guys.
Or his idle animation, which Mario didn't even have, but he would just look at his watch and be like, "Are we
like,
going?
What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like, he cannot sit still. He's like, if I'm not moving, we're not doing anything. Yeah, he would tap his foot and everything. Yeah, that's right.
If your aim was to capture the zeitgeist of the early 90s and quote unquote things that were badass and Terminator, or Terminator 2, and what it was to be cool back then, there it was.
Sega and Sonic.
I'm so glad, though, that they did not give him sunglasses.
I know, thank goodness. That would have looked really goofy, I think, in hindsight. Like, it's fine if it was like some sort of marketing material, or
it's like you're trying too hard, Sonic.
Yeah. Hold on. I like how your thing is the naked animal with the gloves and the shoes is good. Sunglasses would have been that's too far.
I gotta look him in the eye.
Too on the nose, Sonic.
Yeah, so pretty exciting time, I would say. We covered pretty fantastic games, and it's pretty incredible. I would say that Sonic is 35 years old, because again, it's also relative to us and our age, right? Because we grew up with Sonic, and for me, Ducey sent me a list of like this some graphic you found, like these franchises that are turning, I think the earliest was like 25 years or 20 years.
Yeah.
Up to like 35 or 40,
40.
like Castlevania, right? And we're like, holy
Sure.
shit. Like it's, it's different. Like we just go day by day, but it's different when you look at these things. You're like, wow, that was 30 years ago. This was 35 years ago. So
Metroid, Zelda, Castlevania, I think are all 40.
yeah.
And then this was the one that got me, and I was like, we got to do an episode because Sonic is 35, and now my back hurts.
You can't go fast. Yeah. That's really great. Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, any final words before we head out for the day here on Sonic? Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm pretty
good.
set on Sonic here.
Let's
All
go
right.
get some chili dogs.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be pretty
I
great.
told you.
Actually. Yeah.
Sonic even has the right idea when it comes to food.
I know. I do love chili dogs. Yeah. Well, Juan, thank you as always for joining us. I think the last episode you joined us was Street Fighter 2 way back. So it's pretty great you joined us for Sonic and give us some Sonic scene. And also impressions of 1993 impressions of the Activator, which is pretty great.
Yeah, I've never heard a in-person account of that.
Yeah, I always wanted that piece. I always wanted that piece of crap, and I guess my parents made a good decision to not buy me that piece of crap.
Well, as you can tell, I have very detailed memory of it because it was a very formative.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was. I think the first time I had ever been disappointed in a video game in my life.
Where marketing definitely swooned you, and they totally blew it, and they lied to you is what it was.
Right, and I'll never forget it. And I'd like to say that I've never made that mistake again, but I've made that mistake again many,
we all
many
have.
times.
Yeah. How many times we be like, this looks awesome. We bought it. Oh, it's crap.
Next we got to get somebody on the show that's used the Power Glove.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know anyone who's known that, but
Yeah.
maybe we'll have like an accessories roundup or something down.
And not just use the Power Glove ironically, but like was sold on it like Juan was with the Activator.
Yeah. It would be, what's that, like a sort of like a focus group or a trauma group where they share their sort of bad buys or something like that, Yeah. Well, friends, if you're still listening to us battle about the Activator, you can also share your sort of bad buys at legiongamingpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram where I post my collection, all this other cool stuff that I think is pretty badass at Legion Gaming Podcast. Ducey, any final words for our friends who are going to go fast?
You're too slow.